What if I told you that the very people entrusted to build a nation are instead systematically looting it, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, while their citizens starve? This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is the devastating conclusion of a major new United Nations investigation into one of the world's youngest and most suffering nations, South Sudan. A new report lays out a case of what it calls grand corruption, on a scale that is almost unimaginable. And at the center of it all, a $1.7 billion payment for roads that were never built. Stay with me, because this story is about more than just missing money. It's about a captured state and the human cost of pure, unchecked greed. Let's break this down. According to the UN Commission on Human Rights, from 2021 to 2024, the South Sudanese government paid a staggering $1.7 billion to companies affiliated with the country's own vice president, Benjamin Bolmel. The purpose? Road construction. But here's the catch. The report states that this work was, for the most part, never done. They allege that these companies completed less than $500 million worth of actual drivable roads. How? By inflating contracts, overstating the length of roads, overcharging, and building fewer lanes than promised. This wasn't some small-scale fraud. This was part of an off-budget scheme called Oil for Roads that in some years consumed a mind-boggling 60% of all government disbursements. Let that sink in. While the nation crumbled, over half of its money was funneled into a black hole of corruption. But the road scandal is just one symptom of a much deeper disease. The UN investigators didn't mince words. They said, and I quote, "The country has been captured by a predatory elite that has institutionalized the systematic looting of the nation's wealth for private gain." The numbers are horrifying. Since gaining independence in 2011, South Sudan's average GDP per capita has collapsed to a quarter of what it was. Nearly two-thirds of its 12 million people are facing crisis levels of hunger or worse. The currency of the country, the South Sudanese pound, has lost value more than tenfold since independence. And the priorities of this predatory elite are shockingly clear. The report highlights that the annual budget for the president's personal medical unit exceeded the health spending for the entire country. Let me repeat that. The president's clinic got more money than the national healthcare system for millions of people. Now, how did the government respond? Of course, like all corrupt elite around Africa, they will always have their version of the story. South Sudan's Justice Minister, Joseph Geng, dismissed the report. He said the figures don't match government data and blamed the country's problems on conflict, climate change, and falling oil prices. And it's true, South Sudan has been ravaged by a brutal civil war. But the UN report argues that corruption isn't just a side effect of these problems. It's the primary cause. It's this corruption that undermines the government's ability to function, fuels armed violence, and exploits ethnic tensions for political gain. While elites fight for power and profit, the people of South Sudan are left with nothing. They are also facing steep cuts in international humanitarian aid. The world is looking away, and their own leaders are allegedly picking their pockets. Now, let's throw some light into the report away from the United Nations perspective. To understand this report better, we need to ask some basic questions, like, what is the state of roads in South Sudan, if at all the Oil for Road project was fully implemented, diverting more than 60% of the country's budget to the road sector? Save for the northern parts of the country that are predominantly occupied by the ruling Dinka, the other parts of the country are in dire state. The roads in the central equatorial state are almost unpassable, and there isn't any proper road network connecting the extreme ends of the country like Malakal to the capital Juba. The corruption in this youngest African republic may be the reason her neighbors, especially Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia, are developing while the people of South Sudan roam around on empty stomachs. Why? The elite politicians of South Sudan siphoned these monies out of South Sudan and invested in flamboyant apartments in Kampala, Addis Ababa, and Nairobi. They cruise expensive cars in foreign cities without a single thought of what the intended owners of these monies go through. The political elite, much as they pretend to serve the people of South Sudan, clearly use it as an excuse for continued stay in power. To stay away from the money, the political elite of South Sudan act like foreign neo-colonial masters who stir conflict to benefit from it. It is no doubt the corrupt political elite of South Sudan, enjoying flamboyant life in Kampala, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, Washington, and the United Kingdom, among other cities, continue to stir confusion and hatred among the people of South Sudan. Why? The more the conflict in South Sudan, the more aid money will flow in, and the more systems fail to check on the corrupt systems, allowing them continue to channel these monies to their direction of choice. Away from roads, South Sudan, compared to her neighbor, has the worst infrastructure, be it health or energy. What a frustration that the Uganda government recently approved a loan to extend electricity from the Karuma Dam to Juba. This may sound like a good brotherly move, but this comes with strings attached. South Sudanese will have to pay for the cost of electricity from Uganda, when actually the government of South Sudan could have built a dam that provides power to boost the industrial sector. This report is just an iceberg of the deeply rooted corruption in the political systems of South Sudan. Imagine the president's medical clinic taking more money than the country's public health sector. Imagine one vice president diverting $1.7 billion while the gallant soldiers of the Republic of South Sudan go for months, if not years, without receiving their meager pay of less than $50 per month. Purely absurd. So, what happens now? The vice president at the center of these allegations has never publicly responded. The US government had already sanctioned him and his companies years ago, and yet the payments continued. This report is a stark reminder that corruption isn't a victimless crime. It has a body count. It starves children. It denies medicine to the sick. It robs an entire generation of a future. This story needs to be seen. It needs to be heard. We cannot let it be ignored. What do you think should be done? Who should be held accountable? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe this deserves more attention, like this video, subscribe for more hard-hitting news commentary, and share it out, because sometimes bearing witness is the first step towards justice. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.